Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to topic 16. In this topic, I'm going to be explaining to you guys the different render settings. Now to enter into the render settings, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to click on the asset editor over here. And we can actually click on the settings, which is the fourth tab over here. And over here, you guys will notice that we have 6 different tabs. So we have the renderer, we have the camera, we have the render output, environment, material override, and swarm. So these are basically the different render settings that we can get into, and there are even a couple of detailed settings which come over here, which include ray trace, the global illumination, caustics, render elements, and switches. Now as in when we progress in the topics like the project 1, project 2, project 3, we're actually going to be getting into the more depths of these renders. But let's just understand what these settings encompass of. Now when you click on the renderer, you'll notice we have interactive, progressive, GPU acceleration, and the quality. So you can actually set the quality at whatever level you want, and you can just simply click on this render. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just simply going to click on this render. And as you guys can see, this is basically the medium quality render that is happening. And that's basically about how it's going to look. I can also go ahead and set a very high quality render and just close this over here and do another render, which is actually going to give me extremely high quality, render look. So you can actually see the buffer frame is rendering the image right now, and you can see how this quality is coming out to be. So let it just take place. Now the major portion you can see is happening on this object over here, which is encompasses of the fur and the geometry that we have set up. That's why it's taking a little bit more time to actually render this particular place, but we're doing it at the highest quality without any interactive, progressive, or GPU acceleration. And I'm going to be explaining to you guys what that is as well. So let this just completely finish off the entire look of this. And you can see it's still a little bit blur, but we can always improve the quality, and I'll be telling you guys how to do that as well. So let us just quickly finish off. We have 99, and you can see it's all under just having the quality set up. We have not added any interactive or progressive, and that's about what we are doing. And the minute this last portion over here is done, we'll actually be able to then understand. You can see it's done. Now you can see once this entire image is done, I can actually go ahead and switch on interactive render and then take out another render, which is going to kind of redo this whole thing, and I will be able to actually move now here and there and actually see. So that's what the interactive render does. So that basically means is if the interactive render is on, then only can we on the GPU acceleration. And the minute I on the GPU acceleration, what happens is it works on the graphic card and it keeps on trying to improve the settings. So if I zoom in a lot, you'll actually be able to see certain small changes still taking place in this whole thing. And that's basically about how the interactive rendering works. Now, if the interactive render is switched off and we only have progressive, high quality, and GPU acceleration on, this will give us the most best render that is possible. So I'm gonna have to stop all of this and actually just look here and take out a render. And what's gonna happen is this is actually going to, we need to clip this off over here. Just kind of stop that. Switch off the GPU and go ahead and take another render. That's stopped over here. Now we've got it completely stopped. Now when we look over here, you can actually see that I can use progressive only with the GPU acceleration closed and this to be at medium, and actually go and give a render. And this is going to actually do a progressive render. That means it's going to continuously keep rendering until it actually reaches the best possible quality of the medium size. Alright, so that's the best possible quality under progressive render. If I switch on GPU acceleration and if I take out a render, same at medium quality, you guys will notice that it starts to actually embed and take a lot of more time for the render to happen, because now it's actually just working on a complete GPU acceleration. But anyway, the object is quite small, so we still get a medium quality render. Now let's say this is at a high quality render with GPU acceleration on as well as progressive on. And now I kind of take a render, we're actually going to end up getting something which works, extremely high quality result that will happen, and it will keep on making this proper until the progressive reaches all together. So that's something that you guys have to understand, is how the whole thing functions. So we can keep progressive GPU acceleration and high quality on to get the best quality, or you can keep your interactive on to basically work around and see real-time changes in the render. So this is basically the different renderer options that we have. Now the more and more renders we take out, the better it will become for you guys. Now as you guys can see, we have a couple of more options over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to switch on interactive render and do a render, because here only with interactive you'll actually be able to understand how the whole thing looks when you make a couple of changes, and that's the best way to learn. So over here you can see I can actually change this to a spherical, and that's what's going to happen. When I change this into a cube map, that's basically how it's going to, look like. It's actually going to get into different cube setups of the map, and it's going to give us a look. So we can keep it at standard. After this, you've got exposure value. You can see it's at 14.24. Let me change that a little less to 11, and you'll actually see that it brightens up completely. That's actually what the exposure value is going to do. So the more you increase the exposure value, the more darker the whole image becomes, and the more you increase it, the more brighter it becomes. So you need to find that really good path over there, and you can see the white balance is happening with white color. I can actually change it to whatever color I want, and we're going to actually see the changes happening regardless with that color in it. So if I'm trying to balance out the red, then you can see how the blue and the green are acting together. So again over here I'm just going to have it at white, because white balance has to always maintain at the white color. Well, after this you guys can see over here, so let me just keep that at 14. I think this is fine. You can see depth of field, so let me just switch that on. Automatically depth of field is basically going to give a very different look to the whole thing. So you can see I can actually pick focal point. So the first thing I want to do is pick a focal point, and I can actually pick this as my focal point. So right now I've picked the focal point to be this. Now I've got defocus and focus distance. So let me just reduce the focus distance like a lot, and I'm going to show you what's going to happen. Alright, you guys can see that. Now let's reduce the defocus as well completely. Increase the focus distance very slightly, just around just 1 or 2 or something like that. So you can actually see it completely out of focus, and you can see the more I increase the defocus, the more defocused the whole thing basically becomes. You can see that. And now let me just increase it slightly more, so you'll actually see how the things are starting to kind of look. The more you increase the focus distance, the more things will start to get a little bit better. And it's good to keep the defocus high initially, so that you understand how the entire look is going to look. So let me just kind of increase that over here. You can still see the defocus is there, but it's getting better. Definitely it's getting better. What I really feel is that they can have a radius which they can give. So let's say if I pick this focal point, I can actually pick this over here, this point, and you can see it automatically kind of does an autofocus of the whole thing. And you can actually see which point is looking a little less blur. And let me just reduce that focus distance. And I can actually go on increasing it more than 500 as well. Let's say I keep it around 700. So you guys will actually start to notice what's happening is that we're getting a little bit more clear, but it's getting extremely defocused like that. You guys can actually see. Let me pick up a little more higher, 1000 maybe, and you guys will actually see that it gets crazy defocused because the focus distance has increased a lot. So we keep it around 250, we'll get a much more blurred out image. You can see that's completely dead, and the more and more you start to increase it, the better and better it starts to become. So we need to find the right focus distance for it first of all. So the best way to do that is kind of just doing that, and the minute you get that, you can reduce the defocus to actually defocus and focus certain objects. So that's basically about how you can have this in focus and that's not in focus. So we need to do this setting a lot before we can actually be finalized with the focus of our entire look. And if I switch that off, we just remove the entire focusing. Now We have got vignetting over here. So let me just explain to you what that is. Let's say I increase this, you can actually see what happens with that. We get like this blurry edges on the side, and you can actually even use this tilt, which is basically like it kind of tilts the whole vertical look of the whole thing. So you can actually have it completely tilted out and kind of get that particular look that you're actually looking for. Again, this is a complete camera setting, so understand why it is looking like this. Well, the next thing over here is the render output. Now the render output, as you guys can see, has the safe frame. So when I switch on the safe frame, it's actually going to show you guys two black patches on both the sides, and that basically means is anything in the dark patch will not be in the render. Okay, so you have to make sure about that. Then you have of course got the image width and the image height. I always like to keep mine at 1920 by 1080, which is the best I think it's a very good ratio. Again, of course, you can set it up as to whatever aspect ratios that you really want, but as I told you, 1920 by 1080 is what I will stick to. This is something like that. Let's switch off the vignetting also over here, 0. Alright, so this is basically about it. The next thing is the environment. Now in the environment, you guys will notice that right now the background is black, and you can see this little line is over here on. I can actually go to environment overrides, and you can see aerial overrides. You've got a couple of things which you can just override over here, and override basically means is that this background is not going to function anymore, but you can see how this whole thing is looking. And I really like the way it looks because we can actually use this kind of a look for many exploded views and things like that. Then you've got the environment override. So let's say if I override with the GI light, you can actually see the change that happens over here. Then you've got the reflection override. You can actually see only when there's a lot of material with reflection, you'll see that. Again, with refraction, you'll be able to see. And secondary matte, when we have more detailed materials with closer views, you'll actually be able to understand the whole different look. The next thing is the background over here. So if I click on this, you can actually see sky. Right now they have selected it to be white like this. So I can actually go ahead and I can select a bitmap, and that bitmap could be of anything else. Let's say of a pattern like this. Alright, and I'll just open up that pattern. You can see that pattern over here. Let's go back. And what happens is that pattern kind of takes up the whole space, and the minute I kind of increase this number, you can actually see that the entire pattern's colors are being used in that. So we have the brownish tinge, which is completely being coming back in the background, and that's because of this particular pattern. Now over here you've got manipulation, you've got the whole texture, you've got the same kind of settings that we have, but let's say I change the color to white. So what's going to happen is basically you can see when I do a little bit of these increments over here and I switch this off, you can actually see the color gets override over here directly. So if the color is, let's say, something like this, black, so we actually get full black. Otherwise we can have gray. You can actually see those things happening over here. And if I have the GI skylight on, actually the skylight will be then seen over here, and I can always switch this back on to get a background like this. So this is complete background, remember that. All right, just because it's a sky does not mean that it's going to look like a sky, but you can see if I select this as the sky, let me go back, you can actually see what's happening over here, and we'll just bring this back to 1, and you can actually see that changes come back over here. Now I can reduce this to, let's say, 0.5, and what's going to happen, you can see again one more time, the minute I increase 0.5, it's almost the same, and this is basically how it's going to look. So this is what happens in the environment. Also, when I'm talking about the background setups, I'm actually going to show you guys how you can do that. You guys can see over here, if I select a bitmap and let's say I select this floral background, you can see it looks something like this. Let's go back over here and I'll switch this one off. So what happens is you end up getting something which looks like this, and I can actually go on increasing this to kind of give it the whole GI light setup over here. But in the end of the day, we have to make sure that we get a proper look for the whole thing. So I'm yet not showing you guys how to do the sky additions and things like that. That we'll be seeing in the final when we're actually rendering a project. Then you've got materials override. So let's say I switch this on, automatically you'll see all the materials get overrid and end up becoming just white like this. Alright, so that's a very good way to actually understand lighting, because here the materials are getting override, so your render will come out faster, but at the same time we'll understand lighting and where the lights are working. So when we start rendering, I'm going to take you to render phases, where we do a material, then we do a render, then we do the light, then we do a render, and then we do the geometry, and then we do a render. So then you understand whether the whole model is working well, and then you do the final render. And then of course swamp is when you want to render on the internet, and by using online CPUs, which work worldwide. So I don't suggest to use swamp. I always suggest to use a renderer and set the quality that you want, so that you get it out in a particular time, because VRAY takes a lot of time to give you guys renders also. So if you guys have understood this topic well, we have completed all the basic understandings of VRAY. So how the VRAY lights work, how the tabs work, geometry, how the materials work, how the VRAY BRDF works. We've learned everything on all the basic settings of VRAY. Now from the next topic, I'm actually going to be starting off a brand new project, the first project, which is a room close-up, a very small project of very few materials to edit, but that's how we're going to build. And then soon as we go to the next project, which will be actually a master bedroom, which has details, but big details, and then we'll be going into a luxury bathroom, which is actually going to have small and intricate details, which we're going to have to work really hard with to actually get a very good view. So we're going to remove 2 renders of each of these, and I hope that you guys understand VRAY perfectly by the end of the course. I'll see you guys in the next topic. Till then, take care.